Welcome to Daily Drive for Monday, June 8th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Honda is refreshing two of its best-known models, and one of them is getting a lot more rugged. Auto executives were in the room with President Trump last week for a conversation about right to repair. And the sales numbers look fine. The economic indicators do not. So which one should we trust? Plus, the F-150 Lightning was supposed to be the iPhone moment for electric trucks. Chargenomics CEO Loren McDonald says he got that wrong, and he's here to explain why.
The fact that it was more efficient and had great acceleration and helped save the planet and all those other things were completely irrelevant to that group.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Honda is giving two of its core midsize models a significant upgrade. The Accord is getting a mid-cycle refresh for the second half of 2027, with a bolder, more angular design, a larger infotainment screen, and a possible expansion of its S Plus Shift simulated manual hybrid system. American Honda's head of product planning, Gary Robinson, says customers will feel like they're seeing a new model. Meanwhile, the Passport gets a ruggedness boost later this year, with extra ride height and suspension tweaks on the off-road Trail Sport trim to better challenge Toyota's TRD lineup. President Trump met with top auto executives last week to discuss right-to-repair legislation. Those in the room included GM CEO Mary Barra and Ford's Andrew Frick, along with leaders from NADA and the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. The meeting comes as a bill advances in Congress that would codify existing industry agreements and give the FTC authority to enforce them. The U.S. auto service market is worth roughly $200 billion a year, and independent shops, lawmakers, and automakers remain far apart on what data access should look like. And U.S. auto sales are holding steady despite inflation hitting a 3-year high and consumer confidence falling. But warning signs are mounting. Real disposable income has dropped for 3 straight months, and Cox Automotive's Mark Strand is asking whether consumers could go on strike in the back half of the year. Joining me now is tech and innovation reporter Molly Boygon, co-host of the Automotive News Shift podcast. Molly, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me, Kel.
All right, so you wrote about this on autonews.com, and we'll hear your interview about this with Jessica Caldwell of Edmunds on tomorrow's show. But what's the biggest warning sign you're watching right now, and what would it take for these economic headwinds to actually show up in the sales numbers?
Yeah, so the story was about how all of these economic indicators paint a sort of gloomy picture going ahead into the year. You have CPI, which tracks inflation, which has been up. You have consumer confidence, which tracks consumer sentiment, which is down. And while those economic indicators haven't really hit the auto industry yet, sales are remaining steady. There are some other potential warning signs on the horizon. So two that were pointed out to me by economists that I spoke to for this story were the producer price index, which tracks how much producers are paying for their goods, which is going up, which means ultimately they're going to continue to pass those costs on to consumers. And another one is real disposable income, which tracks how much consumers can actually spend after taxes. And that number has been down for 3 consecutive months, and there's kind of no end in sight to that. So that sort of weakens consumers' purchasing power, even for those big ticket items like a new automobile.
Now, one dealer told you sales volumes are looking good. Why is that happening despite these larger macro warning signs?
Yeah, it's a really interesting sort of exception to the broader economic picture that the auto industry sales numbers are remaining steady. And the way that was explained to me is because new vehicle transaction prices have gotten so high that anybody but the wealthiest consumers have kind of been excluded from the new vehicle market. Like people in the middle and lower income stratas have moved on to used vehicles. So those people who are buying new are less likely to be impacted by some of these inflationary pressures, by, the sort of doom and gloom, consumer confidence issues. They have more disposable income. They have more money to spend. And so they're less likely to be impacted by some of those headwinds. However, like I said, the producer price index and that real disposable income figure do indicate that even for the wealthiest consumers, if some of these hardships continue, which are a lot of them caused by the ongoing war with Iran, ultimately that will hit even the wealthiest consumers in their wallets and may impact their behavior as far as even new vehicle sales go.
Always insightful. Molly Boygon, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kel.
The electric truck was supposed to be a slam dunk. The F-150 is the best-selling vehicle in the U.S. for decades running. Put a battery in it, add bidirectional charging, and watch it reshape the market. That was the theory anyway. Loren McDonald, CEO of EV analytics firm Chargenomics, admits he believed it too, and says he got it completely wrong. McDonald joined our own Jerry Hirsch, Automotive News Managing Editor of Content, on the Shift podcast to ask about why the psychographics of the truck buyer were fundamentally misaligned with early EV adoption. Here's a piece of that conversation.
First, I want to start with trucks. We have this company Slate, which Amazon's invested in. It's going to produce this bare bones truck. Doesn't even have paint. You put a wrap on it. It's virtually an a la carte vehicle. And then we have two other initiatives going on. One is that in Long Beach, California, Ford is developing from what claims is a blank piece of paper, a electric truck, a compact truck. And then Toyota is nibbling around on this too. Do you think there's a market for these electric trucks? And the reason I ask is if we look at the Cybertruck, Tesla's truck, it's a bust. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. If we look at the Ford F-150 Lightning, it's a bust. If we look at the Chevy Silverado EV, it's a bust. If we look at the GMC Hummer, it's a bust. Yeah. So what's going on here?
Yeah, and I'll add two more things to your list there. One is if you look at the Rivian R1T, the sort of the midsize pickup, versus the Rivian R1S, the suburban soccer mom success vehicle out where I live in Northern California, they're everywhere. The SUV outsells the pickup 3-1. Right. So that gives you another example of just sort of the demand for pickups versus SUVs that are electric. The other thing is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a startup in the Bay Area called Tello Trucks. It's a tiny little truck.
Tello.
That's also targeting the sort of urban, what they're calling the urban pickup market. But yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One of the main reasons that the legacy automaker pickups just, were only selling 1,000, 2,000 a month or less was just starting off with the psychographics of that buyer, right? Like pickup buyers are typically not going to be the type of people that are excited about electric vehicles, right? So first and foremost, they're just not they don't fall into that sort of buyer demographic of people that are going to be early adopters adopting this thing. And the second thing, really the big thing is that demographic also likes to tow, or at least says they like to tow, whether they actually do or not, or do it very frequently. And they also love to tout going on, 600-mile road trips without stopping to use the restroom, right? So, for them, the range issue was sort of the big thing, right? Like the fact that it was more efficient and had great acceleration and helped save the planet and all those other things were completely irrelevant to that group, right? They're foremost, they wanted a big macho truck that can, go far and tow and not have to worry about, charging for 40 minutes or whatever it is. So it was just, fundamentally, it was not the best body style, for legacy automakers to sort of focus so much on. They should have focused on, like what I know we're going to talk about is more of like a Maverick, Ford Maverick type smaller pickup that has a different sort of buyer group and user group. So it was just sort of a mismatch, if you will, with the market.
Interesting. But before we go to the small trucks, there was a disconnect that I have looking into this, and I gotta admit, I'm wrong all the time on auto predictions and auto
As we
markets,
all are.
which is why I'm a journalist and not a product planner. So I thought there would be a market, at least for the Ford and Chevrolet products, and possibly even the Rivian product. Utilities, municipalities, fleets. I mean, the electric vehicle architecture has a great use case for businesses that drive a defined route and come back to base for some period of time, whether it's overnight, for a lunch break, whatever it is. And there was kind of this push, especially in California where you are, and some of the other states along the West Coast and New York, to electrify some of the commercial uses, delivery, and then certainly for governments to get into electric vehicles. Why did that market not develop for these vehicles?
So a couple of reasons, and one is to give an example is Caltrans, right? The department here in California that manages our highways and stuff has purchased a decent number of the Silverados. I see them all the time out there with the Caltrans logo, and now they have a big order in for the Rivian R1Ts. But I think, when you think about fleet management, those buyers, they tend to be sort of old school, and most of them just are not comfortable and familiar with everything that's going to take from repairing and charging and those. It's like an entirely new skill set that they have to learn. So I think that just sort of part of it. It's like there's no compelling reason for them unless they're sort of told to make that switch. And then the other reason is just cost, right? Like when and you want to talk about getting something wrong, Jerry. I really got the Ford F-150 Lightning wrong, like, about 7 years ago or whatever, as I predicted it would be, like the iPhone to EV sales, that it would trip because it had bidirectional charging and all these things. It was the most successful, highest selling vehicle in the US for 45 years. Like, I thought it would be game changing. And so I got that one completely wrong as well. But yeah, I mean, I think, and so when it came out, it actually came out at a price, I think about 20,000 higher than what we all expected, right? So I think price was the other reason the fleets didn't adopt it. They just realized that they could get a regular F-150 or Silverado for significantly less, right? They could get many more trucks into their fleet. And so it was really only those fleets and government entities like those you see in maybe in California and New York and stuff, where they were really motivated to electrify government-owned vehicles. But yeah, I think cost was a big part of it.
Loren McDonald spoke with our own Jerry Hirsch. You can hear the full conversation on the latest episode of Shift, available now wherever you get your podcasts. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Molly Boygan and Urvash Kakaria for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on electric vehicles, auto sales trends, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation with Jessica Caldwell, head of insights at Edmunds, on the state of auto sales amid economic uncertainty.
I think that these indicators are sort of a vibe check for companies, for automakers, to see like what exactly is the sentiment out there, how much are consumers under stress.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.